Hey all, this is O1 Tuboku and...
Jumping jackasses, Zach, man. It's Jarek the Jackass.
Yes, and we are back to you with another movie, or... Wait, no, not movie review. That will be coming probably within another 2 or 3 videos, but another anime review, and we are back to... aha! Yes, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. And yes, it is continuing, and I should have wrote the number down, but I think it was 26, I think. Struggle of the Fool. And this one kicks off right after the battle that they had with Father, and sadly on the losing end of so. And it starts with Envy leading Edward and Alphonse out of the tunnels in the basement, or underground, as if you want to say it. And they're going up an elevator, and they discover that, hey, we were right under Central. What a coinky dink.
Yeah, I guess it's true. Never look in the basement.
Yep. And to that same thing, I basically Envy brings Edward and Alphonse to the showers because they're both all covered in grime and filthy. Edward lays a little tidbit down for Alphonse, saying that he saw his body and that, that his body couldn't go with Edward because that's not his soul. And sorry if you guys have the Mummy reference, you'll get it. Naughty soul! Naughty soul! I know that's terrible, copying the Egyptian words that Arnold Vosloo was saying, but hey, love that scene. But, it's like Alphonse is with Gui, believing there's a chance to get his body back, knowing that his body's there. And also, it hit me within this episode, because I never understood it before, but again, I've only seen the show one time through, and I'm like, how is Alphonse's body still being able to respond? Well, obviously, if you think about it, because I just did with this episode, a piece of Alphonse's soul is probably still tied to the body, just like most of his soul's in the armor, but a part of that body is probably also still with him with inside the soul, and vice versa. So, makes sense, but try not to think about it too much, because if you did and go into the physics of it, it would ruin it.
I've gone cross-eyed.
Yeah. Since I've been watching Twin Peaks again, you may think I've gone insane, but I promise I will mention weird things again. But, it's... Probably cut that out there, but, it's giving Alphonse some hope, and we also learn within this one, there's a bit of a gag here, that Edward sees how Xiao Mei, the little panda with Mei Chang, is on Alphonse's shoulder, and he's like, Al, what is that? Oh, this? About that. You carried that little pipsqueak with you the entire time! And, they're basically fighting over it. It's like, well, she was injured. I couldn't leave her there. Basically, in context, if you don't know what I'm talking about, Mei Chang is still recovering inside of Alphonse's chest. And as they're arguing about that, you have Envy, who looks like one of the Fuhrer soldiers, comes into the room. Hey, what's taking you guys so long? Why you're loud? And because I forgot to mention, Edward is naked throughout this entire exchange. So he's not wearing anything, and all three of them scream at the nakedness and just, oh!
No, Edward. It's too sexy.
So yeah, great bit of tension to bring the show back to some fun, considering all the big, huge drama moments that we just divulged in the last couple of episodes, obviously. So, great stuff there. And we learned from Envy that, and to say the line in English, because I love the line in English a bit more, he is giving the Elrics over to Wrath, or as he's saying, Wrath will be your babysitter, so go with him. And they get there to discover that Colonel Mustang is already sitting with the Fuhrer, and they sit down, and, they're just wondering things, and Mustang's like, oh, don't worry, I know the truth, and I'm pretty sure you guys will see the rest of it yourselves, or who knows, maybe you know more than me. And there's actually this nice little scene that they're wondering if they can take the Fuhrer, but then they're like, he must be so confident that he could take them by themselves because nobody's in this room other than Fuhrer Bradley, Colonel Roy Mustang, and Alphonse and Edward Elric.
Well, hold on a sec.
What you doing now, Jarek?
Oh, you know me, only bad intentions.
Well, get back here soon. You're staring the straits.
Yeah, if I remember, the exact line was, in English, it's like, he must feel pretty confident. Only one sword. He must be pretty confident he could take us all. And this is Fuhrer Bradley. I don't even think he would need the sword.
Nice using the prop of the sword there, Jarek. Too bad he ain't got like a cutlass like he does though.
Oh God, I wish, man. A Revolutionary War cutlass. I'm just saying.
Something tells me how. And sorry, we know the government may view this, but yeah, he likes collecting these things, and I'll just say, hopefully you'll find one day, Jarek. That's all I'll say.
Oh, it's not hard to find them, but at a reasonable price. Not anymore.
Well there you go. Maybe that's what's keeping you from it. But you know, they don't make a move on it. They listen to what the Fuhrer Bradley has to say, and they start the conversation. You know, Edward's like, you knew about this the entire time, so what was with that warning? He's like, oh, I didn't lie to you boys. All I told you was to keep your heads down and to treat the military as our enemies. So essentially, I didn't lie to you, which, to that point, he didn't. He actually did tell them the truth in many ways. He just left out a few details.
Well, what's interesting is that's the line in Japanese. In the American version, I believe Edward says, like, so what was with that act at the hospital? You telling me to stay safe and not meddle into things, and he's like, I didn't lie. I told you simply to keep yourselves out of trouble and not look into things that don't concern you. And honestly, this is kind of another one of those neat cases between Japanese and American version. The Japanese is a little bit, in my opinion, more expository for the sake of the audience. The American version is almost a dead-on one-to-one of what would happen if you were actually in an interrogation with a man like Brad, because this man knows he's pretty much got all the cards right now, and honestly, it's like he said, it's exactly, how they do things. It's like, I didn't lie to you. I only told it, basically, to surmise it, I only told you exactly what I deemed you necessary to understand. Yep. Well, as long as you keep your head down and do what you're supposed to, nothing bad's going to happen.
Well, and again, to your point there, Jarek, it's like how I've been saying all along, because you guys have heard us have this debate before, where when you watch Asian anime, and this is probably would be the same thing, whether it was Japanese, Chinese, Vietnamese, what have you, when you watch it in their own language, there's usually a bit more of a respect, a bit more of having that sort of honor within the system, whether you're a hero or a villain. And the Japanese can bring crazy characters out really well. I've seen it before, as can other Asian actors. But with us, we love putting the drama into it and really emphasizing the dramatic, sometimes being, melodramatic, but the drama really fits with it very well. And I gotta say, for what, to mention the voice actors here, what Vic Mignogna and Ed Blaylock did, bouncing off each other here, it was different, but they really kept the nuance of the Japanese script very well, in my opinion.
And Ed Blaylock really nailed a military commander-style interrogation perfectly.
Yes, and to that point, Jarek, that's part of the next thing here. Edward, after hearing that answer, refuses to be a state alchemist, tosses his, which I love the imagery of it, the spackled with blood military alchemist watch at Bradley, refusing right then and there to be a state alchemist, because he's saying, well, then it's a farce. We're doing only what you want. And you know what? I'm going to try to warn every other state alchemist not to believe you or trust you or do anything you guys say. And then he's like, what was that friend of yours again? Oh, yes. Winry Rockbell. She grew up with you guys in Resemble, and if I'm not also mistaken, she's very good at fixing your automail. And isn't she in Rush Valley right now, working with some very nice people. It would be such a shame if I had to cut her down.
Well, and again, that's almost one for one how the Japanese went. And the American version isn't too far off, but it's definitely a little bit more familiar. It's like, now, you wouldn't, what was the name of that sweet young lady? Ah, yes, Winry Rockbell. I hear she's quite the accomplished automail engineer.
Mechanic.
Fixes your automail. Has developed quite a name for herself in Rush Valley. And, she's practically a childhood friend. One would almost say practically a member of the family. Would be a real shame were anything to happen to such a sweet young lady, now wouldn't it? And then, he just kind of tosses the watch back to Edward and is like, so what will you do, Full Metal? And he's like, I guess there really isn't much I can do. And I forget his exact words, but it's basically basically as long as we
well, no, he goes, how thoughtful.
Well, yeah, after, Ed says what he says, he's like, King Bradley just has that really creepy but, kind of gentle grandpa look on him, is like, how thoughtful. And that's the American version. The Japanese version was a little bit longer.
Yeah, and it was like, you made the right choice or something like that. I didn't write it down here, but yeah, you made the right choice or something.
Then, of course, he asked Roy Mustang, and there are differences between the American and Japanese cadences of it, but basically it amounts to, you've got me on a pretty short leash here, but as long as I don't step outside of my bounds, and as long as I don't cause too much trouble, I'll be free to resume my duties. This doesn't change my ambitions in either way, just so you know. And he's kind of like, you can see that what's his name, Bradley's kind of impressed. I think he actually kind of enjoyed it, because like I told Boku here, what I took away from this was, you get the impression he knew they were going to do this, but at the same time, this was like a dad having that tough love chat with your kids. It's like, I know what you've been doing, and as long as you promise not to do anything else stupid, it's all water under the bridge. It's just know I'm watching, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and believe it or not, I think this either happened a little bit after or before. Alphonse asks, please, sir, I know where our situation stands, but, will you let us look for the Philosopher's Stone to get our bodies back? And he's like, well, I don't care. And he's like, I don't care what you do as long as you don't cause trouble for us, and it's like, okay.
And also, I know we kind of covered this in an earlier episode, but again, Roy Mustang fills Ed and Al on the fact that he basically sent all of Mustang's subordinates to 4 different corners of the map, and you would think that would be stupid, right? I mean, because, they could try to gather allies, rush the capital. It's like, but this is Mayor Bradley. He controls the center. All of command is under his control. This is a guy who, I mean, even if his allies in all 4 different directions try to gather friends and just attack, it's like, they have no idea what they're up against. The only people who really know anything are Roy and the brothers, and they're in Central with the big guy himself, so it's like, you see this confidence. He is a military genius. It's like, he's got 3 of the most badass alchemists, he's only got 1 sword, doesn't give a shit. He's got his 4 closest allies on 4 different corners of the map, and it's like, whatever. It's like, I'm Mayor Bradley. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, and to that thing, when they start to get up and leave, you have Roy Mustang say, Fuhrer, if I may ask you one question. Oh, what's that, Colonel Mustang, or General Mustang? He's like, did you have anything to do with Mayhew's death? No, that I had nothing to do. And he's like, oh, but you know who did. I offered you 1 question and 1 question only. And obviously, you know why he did that, because if Mustang figures out the truth, Fuhrer Bradley knows he's gonna instantly go for envy and go I'm gonna kill that bitch man thing.
But ironically, I think it doesn't really matter, because let's be honest, there are only a handful of people who would have been good enough to kill Mace Hughes, it's probably a homunculus, and just with that one answer, he's already ruled out one of them. So
well, that is true. So probably one mistake from Fear Bradley there, and it continues on, and you have Mustang. Going, oh, well, the Elrics ask Mustang for change, and there's this funny thing about how this is all you got for money. It's more than what you both got. And then, they all run in different directions. Mustang is actually worried about Hawkeye, gets down there to see, Major Armstrong watching his car, and he's, like, all freaked out because, he didn't expect him, and Major's like, Something wrong, Colonel? Is anything bothering you? Well, I expected a hot girl to be standing there, not a muscle-bound, mustachioed freak of nature. And then, Hawkeye comes out of nowhere, and, Mustang's relieved because he's like, I thought you would have left. And he's like, sir, you should know by now, I'm not going to leave you behind. And, if there's any danger, it's too late to do anything about it now. We're all in this together.
And what I love is she actually turned his own words against him. Again, like she always does, it's like, well, sir, someone once told me to never quit no matter how bad the situation gets. Hint, hint, that was Roy.
Yep. And to that same thing, basically you have Hawkeye, Colonel Mustang, and Major Armstrong go off together, and then you have Edward and Alphonse on the phone. They're worried calling Winry. Edward's like, is everything okay? Are you fine? Has anything happened to you? And she's like, yeah, I'm fine. And she's like wondering why Edward's calling. All the meanwhile, you see Winry's reaction for Edward calling, and she's twirling the phone, being all coy, and she's got this big smile on her face because, the relationship is starting to grow with these two, and she teases the Elrics, teases Edward. Edward's, yelling on the phone, his classic camp, but at the same time, she's like, no, everything's fine, but Edward, it's nice you called. I like this. I hope you can do this again. And it turns a bad moment into a very sweet moment, and it's very cool to see. But then who's the one to break the icebreaker for the next one after they're taking a sigh of relief, knowing that Winry's okay? Hi there, Greedling, or whatever you want to...
Well, Greedling, that's actually a good one.
That actually works well, Greedling,
Greedling. But before I give my thoughts on that, back to Miss Hawkeye for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why she wasn't waiting there exactly when Roy got back was as she says in the Japanese, she was off to the restroom, but in the English dub she says the latrine, which for those of you not familiar with the old military slang, that's basically the outhouse, the shitter, the what have you. So, kind of another
rat factory.
Yeah, it's basically where you take the Browns to the Super Bowl. But it's another nice nod to just how much attention they pay. And like he mentioned, the reason why they wanted to change was, of course, to warn Winry. But it's so cute, she's just so happy and thrilled to hear from him because, as she says in the phone call, it's like, well, this is just strange. It's like a snowstorm in summer. You never call. It's actually kind of nice, Ed. And she's just cutely twirling the phone cord in her finger. And you can start to see where she's starting to become the Edward Elric waifu we all know she will become.
Yeah.
And it's just adorable because it really is one of those reactions where it's like real life, You just wait with bated breath for that one important person to call you.
Mm-hmm.
And also, again, Greedling. I love that.
Well, Greedling, because essentially they still are the same person in a way. But, Greed shows up, basically, is starting to, tease them and stuff like that. And, Edward's going, wait, you're not going to, follow us and try to do anything? Or, is Ling okay in there? And he's like, yeah, he's fine. He actually wanted me to give you this message to a girl or something. I don't know. And he's like, well, what does it say? We can't read it. Well, I can't read it either. It's in his language of Shing, so I don't know what it says. And, they say, well, again, you're not going to follow us to try to kill her. And he's like, no. As a rule of thumb, I don't kill or attack women. And, that's not my thing. And you should know me. I tell the truth, even though I'm Greed. And he basically I forgot. What's the third thing he mentions, Jarek? The third thing he has as a creed?
I only remember two of them, to be honest with you.
Yeah, because he said a third thing. I don't remember what it was, but he walks away and he's like, be careful, Ling, or whatever it says. He's like, it's greed,
and
with the hand up in the air.
Anything I just realized about that scene, that quote unquote parchment he handed him from Ling, that wasn't parchment. Those were the bandages she cut off that were on her arm when she cut it off to distract Mayor Bradley.
Yeah.
Which means that red stuff was probably her blood. He probably found the bandages that were on her arm when she cut it off and, gave her the message, on that. Well, anyways, we're going to talk more about that. But again, it's a kind of a neat callback because, you can see Ling is still somewhere in there. And it's kind of interesting that Greed is kind of giving him a little bit of autonomy. But at the same time, there's not not this overt communication. He's not scanning his memories. He's not really looking through his knowledge to translate the language. It's just like, I don't care, but Ling did ask me to pass this on to you. So it's kind of neat. You see a relationship developing between Ling and Greed.
Yeah.
Which may or may not come into play later.
And as well, it gives to the same thing as it continues on. Let's see. Before we get to that next part, I forgot. Scar finds Dr. Marco, and Dr. Marco notices that Scar's bleeding, and he's wondering who's up there. Don't worry, the guard's not coming back for a while. Let me heal you. Scar goes down there. Dr. Marco starts to lose it and be like, wait a minute. Are you the one from Ishval they call Scar? He's like, this must be a godsend. And he starts cracking up and literally on his knees right before Scar. He's like, this is a gift from heaven. I'm the one who massacred your people. Or one of them who were a part of it. And Scar's like, huh? With that surprise look of what the hell on his face. And then...
Well, and you have to imagine the reason for this. And this is actually one of the darkest things if you really think about it. This guy basically admitted to one of the only survivors that, yeah, I was critical in the extermination of your people. He's been living with those memories, and now we know he's going to be asked to take part in it again, only this time it's going to be his people. So you have to imagine, this guy who survived the first massacre has been slaughtering state alchemists like there's no tomorrow, just shows up. And, I mean, what would that do to a guy who was already living with the regret of an entire genocide, knowing full well they're going to try to use him for another one? I mean, I don't want to use the term because it might get me in trouble, but anybody getting some Nam flashbacks? Shell shock, PTSD, operational fatigue. If any of these terms sound familiar, congratulations. You have family members who are in the military.
Yeah. Well, that's a good way to go about it there, Jarek. It's a great note to take in because that goes to that. Now, we don't see the rest of this conversation till the end, but it goes back to Alphonse, who's caring for, Mei Chang. He's at, Dr. Knox's place. Dr. Knox is all upset because he has nowhere to sleep. His house is he yells, it's not a halfway house, but it's become that. I have no room for myself. All these things, I'm not a gatekeeper for all you people. And, I was going to say Mei Chang, but no, Lan Fan comes out, is happy to see, Alphonse, but she's like, well, where's everybody else? Where's the young master? He gives her the message, and she's like, oh, well, this is so happy. He's found the Philosopher's Stone and his gift to immortality. Well, we have to leave right away. He's not only saved our clan and our people, but we have to get home and tell the king and tell our people. We have to get this done. And then Alphonse is basically, yeah, about that. And then she's actually fine with what Ling Yao is doing, being a part of Greed, because she knows that Ling Yao is doing it for a purpose and that he's still in there. And the funny thing is actually grows her determination, and she's like, Alphonse, you need to find me an automail mechanic right away. I have to be there to serve the young master. And he's like, well, okay, take it easy, but I think I have a few people in mind. I'm going to have, Dr. Knox get you some food. And then all of a sudden, Mei Chang is outside, and he's telling Mei Chang, what are you doing up? You shouldn't be up yet. You're still injured. And what's funny is, in English, Lanfan says two different things in the Japanese. In Japanese, she goes, wait, the name Chang, and then in English she just goes May, and it's like, but you get the idea. You've heard the family names before, and then kunai knife, block with book, and then that whole crap starts.
And I have to admit, this was actually interesting because I didn't realize May was a princess. I mean, I think the first time she talks about it, she just says, our family has lost most of it, has pretty much lost its influence, and we came here looking to find something to reestablish ourselves. I didn't make the connection she was a fucking princess.
Mm-hmm.
But then you find out it's like, you're a dog of the Lao clan. I know you're the princess of the Chang family. And yeah, she's a princess, 17th daughter of the Chang family. It's like...
Yep.
And when I heard the last name Chang, I really should have realized it sooner, but shit happens. You get old.
Indeed. And
what I love about this is how Dr. Knox breaks this up. Because they start fighting, and Al, being the nice guy, is like, can we please not fight? It's like, stay out of our country's affairs.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Knox is like,
what are you doing? What the hell are you doing?
Stay out of our country. I don't give a shit about your country's affairs.
Yeah. I don't give about your country's affairs, dumbass!
And I even love the line he says after that. It's like, Jesus, it's like, it doesn't matter what country they're from. Patients are all the same.
Yep.
And by the way, I have a lot of family who are in the medical industry, and this is spot on. The messy house, the cluttered thinking, the frankly kind of angry, embittered, and yet still willing to do whatever it takes to help someone. This is... Yeah, I don't know what what kind of family Romi Paku comes from, but something tells me I'd fit right in, sadly enough.
Yeah. Oh, if you're talking about the author, not Romi Paku, Hiromu Arikawa.
Oh, sorry, Hiromu Arikawa, but... Yeah, I mean, given her weird attention to detail on both military, medicine, theology, this girl is... I hate to say this, she's on a level of OCD and anal retentive only Rumiko Takahashi would understand.
Well, indeed, and I mean that very well could be true as well. And as you get it, that happens and everything, calms down there. And then we have, Edward, it goes back to Mustang, Hawkeye, and, Major Armstrong, thinking about what they're going to do. Armstrong's like, well, Major, if you can't handle the truth of what we told you about what the fear of Bradley is about the military, you should just quit. And then he has a flashback about, being afraid to stand up to the military while holding a dead Ishvalan child in his arms, saying, what they were doing was wrong. This is part of our country. We shouldn't be doing this. And then, the commander just ignores him, says, get me another state alchemist. Let's move on. And then Armstrong's like, no, I can't go back. I can't, fail again. I have to stand up and see this through. So you know what? I have to be strong this time and try to stop this. Because he's like, that's what I should have done back then, was stand up to my superiors, take it to the right people. But I didn't do that. And, he's also a little upset too. Because he's like, no, not everybody in the military is this greed for power. There's a lot of people like me and you guys who believe in serving our country and doing what's right and protecting our people. So again, he's reinvigorated with that. And so is Roy Mustang, because Roy Mustang was saying, here I thought I was a monster, and we're actually fighting against monsters.
Well, and what I love, too, is, like, when he's telling them that, they ask him, it's like, so, you're going to be in this to the end, and they ask him, it's like, what about you, Roy? What are you going to do now that you know the truth about the Fuhrer? It's like, ultimately, this changes nothing. It's like, but ever since the war, I've been called a human weapon, a monster, and yet it's only when I fight a real monster like lust that I truly feel human. It's like, in the end, he made a point of pointing out that basically, it was like he was, what's the word? It was like he was, it was like he wanted to tell me the truth, like he's been wanting to do it the whole time. He's giving me a test. He's letting me know that there's someone he's taking orders from. It's a test, and I feel a little honored. So honestly, I'm staying in this. This doesn't change anything.
Yeah.
And I love the look on Hawkeye and Armstrong's face when they... I mean, this guy has literally seen just how stacked the deck is against him, and his first impression is, no, I'm not only am I still in this, I'm more excited now.
Yeah. And then to that point, we see why Edward wasn't with Alphonse, because he's going around town and helping fix up damages from his fight with Scar and stuff that still need to be fixed. And, he fixes a lady's balcony, and it's all like this gold and embroidered area. There's like nice little neat artworks. And, you have two alchemists, two soldiers come up and say thanks for his service, but they led him on to something that he finds interesting. He's like, yeah, this morning we had some alchemists come into town, and all they did was embarrass themselves because they couldn't get their alchemy to work. And we're like, yeah, well, they're not state alchemists. You state alchemists can get a lot done in a snap. And then Edward's thinking, wait a minute, this morning, well, that's when we were battling Father, and ours wasn't working, so nobody else could work. And then he was starting to think of some other things, but what also catches him off guard is the lady on the balcony says thank you to him, and that actually catches him off guard because he's like, again, he's thinking that maybe there's no good in alchemy really, but then he realized this is the good that alchemy can provide in helping people. And for some reason it also brings him back to the souls who were transmuted when they got out of Gluttony's belly from what he did to the souls that were inside Envy. And it's like he's thinking about, is there any way to save those people inside Envy? And he's like, well, no, let's not think about that right now. More importantly, let's get back to the thought at hand. Mine and Alphonse's alchemy couldn't work with fighting Father, which means he could block other alchemy because the other alchemists who came into town couldn't do it. So nobody in the area could probably do alchemy whatsoever, but, that little girl and Scar could. So if I talk to them about what they do, maybe I can get ahead, and maybe me and Alphonse don't even need a Philosopher's Stone to get our bodies back. And then looks and sees he has Riza Hawkeye's gun, and he's like, oh, I need to return this. Credits roll, and there's after credits thing.
And before we get to like the usual stuff, there's one thing that I want to point out. When he, does the hand clap to fix the lady's balcony, this is, I think, the first time we've ever seen, or rather I should say hear this, but right when he claps his hands, you can hear the ringing of a bell or a chime.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, like in an earlier review, I said, when they were fighting Father, they were in a room with what appeared to be like a large series of pipes that looked like a pipe organ, and he was able to basically cancel out their alchemy, and now we know he did that on a citywide level. Yet when his powers return, what do we hear? A bell or a chime. It's like the holy, it's like the sound of a holy bell purifying whatever it was blocking his alchemy.
Yeah.
Which again, with the hand clasp, like prayer, is basically like, like the sound of holy prayer restoring his alchemy. And I also find it kind of weird when he fixed her balcony, he had like all this crazy Art Deco gargoyles and stuff with like gold and ivory trimmings. It's kind of like he was purging his demons while he was getting his alchemy back.
Yeah. Well, again, showing that alchemy can be done for nice things, which is what made it a good touch. And as we're at the end, we have it where it goes down beneath underground in the tunnels again to where Father's just sitting there, and then his chest is all bubbling up with bubbles and things like that, plus the soul's inside of him, but out pops a little weird, creepy gluttony baby thing, and then you have, like, Tim Marco still talking with Scar as a voiceover and saying, I was behind it, I was this, and, but you have to kill me, that's the one way that, I can get my vengeance, because this will prevent another genocide like Ishval. Kill me so we can stop this. And, I'm sorry to be asking this of you, but you were like a god to me. So, end this before it gets too late. And then Scar just snaps and grabs him by the face with his hand. That's the hand of destruction. And he's like, well, no, before I do anything, you're going to tell me the truth of it, the truth of the Ishvalan War and everything right now. And that's how it basically ends at the end of the episode. So that's basically it, essentially, for the whole thing.
And there's one little bit of a crazy conspiracy, or maybe it's a theory. An alchemy theory, because while Alphonse was helping Dr. Knox clean his house, there's a family photo he finds.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
And Knox, just wants to get rid of it, but Al, of course, being the guy who treasures family above all else, he wants to keep it. What's interesting is I noticed the woman and the son in it look almost identical to Fear Bradley's wife and son.
Yep.
And like he said, oh, that's just a picture of my estranged wife and son. Estranged? Well, why are they estranged? And he pointed out to me that this guy isn't an alchemist, but he is a doctor who's smart enough to recognize alchemy and do forensic examinations on it.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, and this is just again a theory, an alchemy. Anyways, I'm thinking this guy might have had some involvement in the Fear Bradley experiment.
Mm-hmm. And also within that point, it's like, hey, you never know. But again, it's many of the possibilities. And so we're on to our favorite actors and characters for this one. This one was, again, really hard for me because everybody was superb in this episode. Very, superb. Let's see. This is probably going to be a bit of a long video, guys. I apologize, but I'll say we'll get our favorites out, and then I'll do something through here really quick that's ever been done before. I'm going to read you guys off the entire list because I want to make sure everybody gets their due credit. But if I had to pick a favorite, because, there are favorites, and, it is a hard one, but I will say, maybe I'll do 2 or 3 here. Let me see. Let me take a look at this list here. Well, you know what? Here's 3 right off the bat that I will give. And they are sort of favorites of mine, but I think they gave some of the best performances. I will say, again, at that top level, I will give it to Edward Elric, Vic Mignogna, Romy Paku. Great performances from those folks, respectively. Good acting, great emotion, and, Edward realizing that there's a bigger fish in this fry pond here that he has to do, or a bigger fish to fry from the pond, I guess it would be said. Again, my bias is going to come out here. King Bradley, Fear Bradley, Ed Blaylock, Hidekatsu Shibata. Great performance from that guy always in both languages, and, I will give the edge to Ed Blaylock. I think it was a little bit better. Same thing with Vic Mignogna. I think Vic Mignogna was a little bit better than Romy Paku, but again, that's my English dub bias coming into play. But just good performances from Ed Blaylock too, and just, like Jarek always says, Brad the Chat energy just oozing out of the pores. Even when that's the scene we forgot. Greed met with Bradley really quick, and they were talking about how, Ling Yao was still wanting his control, thought he could take him over, having a laugh at it, and then Brad was like, well, he once asked me about politics, and we chatted for a bit about that when I was fighting him. He said that a king should be for his people. What a foolish and dumb notion. Well, that's ending with him now, and then, Wing Yao takes control of Greed really quick and says, hey, don't look down upon humans. And then all of a sudden, Bradley's like,
yeah, somebody finally spooked Bradley.
Yeah, and then, Greed's like, he likes to get to the surface every now and again, thinking he's going to try to take over me. Well, I'll show him it's not going to happen. So, but yeah, that took Bradley by surprise. And Bradley's like, well, he'll learn how foolish it is to take on one such as Greed. So he's probably in for a ride. Forgot to mention that, so glad I remembered that right now. But, just great stuff from, Fear Bradley, Ed Blaylock, and Hidekatsu Shibata. And because it was a little role, but it stuck with me in it. There's so many good ones in here, which is why I'm going to read from the entire list. But I have to give an edge to When We Rock Bell, Caitlin Glass, Megumi Takamoto, because even though it was a quick conversation, her niceness, her lovingness of the Elrics, and especially Edward coming out in here, really felt good in the heartstrings. It was nicely done. It was carefully acted. Again, Megumi Takamoto was great in it too. She really let it shine. But Caitlin Glass, I don't know what you do, Caitlin Glass, but you really got me to feel that stuff when you acted through. So, great job. And before I read this list off here, Jarek, who are yours?
Well, number one, I'm going to go with Knox because I got some old family...
He would have been a dark horse favorite of mine. Yeah, Knox. R. Bruce Elliott and Ken Ryu Arimoto.
Yeah, I was getting some family PTSD from that guy. It's a bit of a reason I don't work at hospitals anymore, let's just say.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is going to be Winry because...
Okay,
again, I mean, god dang, Caitlin Glass is just a beast of a voice actress.
Again, Caitlin Glass, Megumi Takamoto, yep.
And hey, KyoAni, if you ever redo Violet Evergarden, give Caitlin Glass a call, just saying.
Hey.
And number three, I can't believe I'm not picking Vic this time, but I'm going to go with Brad the Chad.
Indeed. Well, again, similar to mine, but just in a reverse order.
I mean, god dang, this guy cannot fuck up.
Yeah, well... Again, I always liked, to mention that really quick, Ed Blaylock, there's something about what he gives the character, because I loved his performance in the original, love it even more in Brotherhood, but, it's the character itself, too. Hiromi Arikawa made a great character within, Fear Bradley, and, it's like, again... You can like villains too. If anybody watches this and finds it weird, me and Jarek have loved the villains in some of these shows and movies we've watched. You can like them and enjoy them. You don't have to agree with what they do, but you can say that was a well-written and crafted villain for this movie, show, anime, whatever. Because again, you just like it. And,
when him and Greed were talking about their different the different views and politics they have.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting some serious Banquet of Kings moments from Fate Zero, with like Bradley B playing Gilgamesh to Ling Yao's Iskander. It's just like, seriously, get those two to dub that scene because that would be boss.
Yeah, and basically here we go because I don't want to leave anybody out because there were a lot of people, and like I said, this episode was really good, and I loved everybody, and I know we've said that before. But this one just exudes a level that I think everybody has to be mentioned. So here we go. Edward Elric, Vic Mignogna, Romy Paku, Alphonse Elric, Maxie Whitehead, Rie Kugamiya, Roy Mustang, Travis Willingham, Shinichiro Miki, Riesel Hawkeye, Colin Clinkenbeard, Tomiko Orikasa, King Bradley or Fewer Bradley, Ed Blaylock, Hidekatsu Shibata, Alex Louis Armstrong, Christopher R. Sabat, Kenji Utsumi, Knox, R. Bruce Elliott, Kenryu Arimoto, Lanfan, Trina Nishimura, Nana Mizuki, Mei Chang, Monica Rial, Mai Goto, Scar, J. Michael Tatum, Kenta Miyake, Greed, Troy Baker, Yuichi Nakamura, Tim Marco, Jerry Russell, Masayuki Oromo, Envy, Wendy Powell, Manami Takayama, Ling Yao, Todd Habercorn, Mamoru Urano, Winter Rockbell, Caitlin Glass, Megumi Takamoto, Fossler, John Gramillion, Bonnie Shimura, and he wasn't really listed in the Japanese one, and his narration obviously, but Father, Kent Williams, Xiaomei, Tia Ballard.
Oh man, what an episode.
Yeah. Like I said, folks, I hope I don't have to do this every time, but when the voice acting is that good, you gotta give a shout out to everybody, because that's why I was saying it was really hard, because everybody did great work in this one. It was really hard to pick a character, at least for me, and this is the first time that's happened, obviously, because sometimes I've been able to pick and choose it a little bit more easy, but this one had a lot of great interactions. But, in final saying, it is a great episode. It really was a lot of fun. It really is moving the characters forward. The villain plot is becoming more constructed, and you can see where there's problems, but you can see where the hope in the heroes is there. They're not giving up. It's a great thing to see. I love it a whole ton. Jarek, anything more to add?
And plus, we're starting to see the rise of Winry the waifu, so honestly, this episode had everything. And, you know, kids, this is what old anime used to be. When filler episodes didn't feel like filler. You know what I'm saying? I
figured you were going to mention that somewhere, yeah.
All steak and all the sizzle.
Mm-hmm. But hey, what do you guys think? Have you been along for us on this ride so far with this? Have you seen up to this episode and whatnot? You know, if not, just let us know down in the comments below and just give us a ring or, a comment on it. Just let you know what you think. But until then, this is 012 Boku and... Dumbass.
If you know, you know.
Still, you're a dumbass. Well,
no. I'm simply one hell of a jackass.
Well, until then, we'll see you later. Deuces, dumbasses. And I'm not saying that to be a jerk. Quiet, Tanaka. You'll get your...